So how did blacks get so brainwashed? Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logical Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, as y'all know, if you watch any of my videos, you know that I will repeatedly say that the word brainwash blacks. Now, the reason why I say this is because, well, blacks are brainwashed. I mean, it's just that simple. There's just so many blacks in America just absolutely brainwashed by nonsense. Again, they're easily moved by race, just any notion of race, and they turn into mindless zombies that can't think straight. I always say that when race starts for black people, when race starts, brains stop. And that seems to be the issue with so many blacks, you know. Now, this wasn't always the case, though, that black folks was just so hooked up and stuck on race to the point that they can't function like civilized human beings, you know. But the question has to be asked, how did this happen, though? What happened that makes black people, or turn black people into race zombies? Well, after the civil rights movement, right, I say that black people should have left the civil rights era behind and should have moved on to the economic era, or just moved on in general. Unfortunately, most blacks in America today, in some form or fashion, is still stuck in the civil rights era. They're still supposedly fighting the power and fighting for rights in things that they already have. And this is mostly because of these race hustlers, right? Now, the young civil rights crowd, they moved after the civil rights era, you know, they moved on into race hustling. And they've been crying about race ever since. So being told about racism is basically part of typical, as they say, FBA. I say BBA because none of these fools founded anything in America. None of them participated in anything that was associated with a founding America. They were just blessed to be born here. So they're born black Americans. But these born black Americans, typically, if you are a born black American, you've been indoctrinated into race. Now, there's a little thing that's called the big lie narrative. And the big lie narrative says that if you tell the lie to the people, if you tell the lie big enough, long enough, and loud enough, eventually people will accept the lie as true. Where black people have been sold the lie of racism and white supremacy big enough and long enough and loud enough. Again, it's part of black culture. If you're a typical black person, from the time that you're born to the time that you become an adult at the age of 18, you've been so indoctrinated into this nonsense that you believe is true when you have no evidence. This is why you have so many blacks in America are crying about racism, even though there's absolutely no evidence of no systemic racism, no evidence of anything holding the black people back, no evidence that black folks are being barred from doing, achieving anything in America, but they still keep crying about racism and white supremacy because they've been brainwashed and indoctrinated into that nonsense. Again, from the time you're born, from the time that you can walk as a black person, from the time that you can talk and have your own thought, you've been indoctrinated into racism, white supremacy, systematic white supremacy, suspected white supremacy, and also tether. Now you have all these fools just keep saying tether about every damn thing now. That's brainwashing. And this is why, as I say, so many black people in America are so moved by race, and selling race to black people will make you money. And this is why race hustlers exist, because they make money off of selling race to blacks. Anyway, so this is how black people today have gotten so brainwashed in America about race. This is why they keep crying about racism and everything, making race out of everything, being easily moved by race. It doesn't matter whether you just tell them race and then they just lose their mind because they're brainwashed. Now, how are we going to undo this brainwashing? As I said, the black fatigue narrative is most certainly going to take care of that, because when people stop caring, it's no longer going to matter, because this whole narrative is basically been supported, as I've said, by white people placating to the nonsense. Once white people stop placating to that bullshit, it's going to be through. And they're going to have to be forced to stop. Or they're going to start some shit they ain't ready for. Once again, that old saying, you don't start none, won't be none. Well, if they don't want it, then stop it. And I know black folks, they love the phrase F around and find out. And I'm just hoping black people don't F around and find out, mess around with white folks, and you see what you get. Anyway, like I said, this is my 2 cents on, this is how black people in America, the typical BBAs, have become so brainwashed by race because they've been indoctrinated with this all their lives. They've been told a lie big enough, long enough, and loud enough to the point that they believe it with no evidence. Anyway, y'all, as always, until next time.